right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Gestalt Education Show. So I'm excited. We've sat down with all of Brett's best friends from school. I'm excited to sit down with one of my best friends from school. So we're here at Aleck Paint and Performance here in Frankfort, Illinois, just outside Chicago with Jake Aleck. So I was lucky enough to meet Jake. He was 2 tries behind me, maybe something like that. And so we were both MPI reps at the time, and he was at Nationals at Kansas City. And I mean, basically, I was just using his apartment to stay at because he liked the same music as me, and he lived in a sweet place downtown Chicago.
And every course that you went to, I was probably taking it for the second time. You were taking it for the third or fourth time.
Exactly.
So it was an easy blend on that aspect.
Yeah. So I mean, what's been awesome for me too is like Jake and I have had similar, growing pains, learning, and applying and integrating and stuff like that as we went through school. So that's been awesome to kind of have someone to bounce off of. So Jake, start us off with, you're at National. I assume that you probably have a great story of how you stumbled in an MPI club, and where'd your early influences take off?
Yeah, so I graduated from National. It'll almost be 2 years now. When I first started at National, I was the guy that was there like an hour before class started. So I just always saw people talking amongst each other that have been there for a while. And kidding not, the first day of me being at school, I sat across from the lobby at National. It was called the Eagle's Nest for all of those people that went to National, you know what I'm talking about. And I saw David Jolson. He just got married, literally right before that trimester started. And so he was talking to everybody, and he was currently the president of MPI at the school. And so I kind of knew that, all right, this guy knows a little bit more people. He's kind of the linchpin around school. I got to get to know him, right? Yeah. So through meeting Nick Schmidlkoffer, Anthony Kelly, Bob Lutz, all of people that were just a year below Dave, they were just like, hey, we do this thing at lunch, and we kind of all get together and practice adjusting. And at the time, I was like, oh, club, that kind of was like a little goofy. Like back, you think club in college, you're just like, kind of like the dorks that do clubs back then. But then this was kind of like the Studley Club because everyone that graduated from school that did it, they were top tier in their class. So we went down there, and it was a handful of my buddies at the time that I was kind of correlating myself with. I got, guys, let's go down there. And we kept going, we kept showing up, meeting people, and we knew that was the place to be. During lunchtime was down in the adjusting room. When everyone was kind of getting off campus, we were practicing adjustment.
Yes, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, another kind of unique thing about you, Jake, is that you were a college football player. Mm-hmm. You went to the Miami of Ohio. Yep. So some people may meet you with your small stature and say, what the hell are you doing, a college football player? I'm sure that added into a little bit of you being a learn-it-all and just kind of I just think you're a savage because you grinded through, you're a grinder and stuff like that. So how did that journey kind of influence you to where you're at now?
Yeah, I mean, even now working with the high school here, I tell everybody I had to concentrate on everything that was besides God-given talent, right? God-given talent, God-given ability. I had to do everything besides that, which was your nutrition, which was your bodily movement and getting strong with stuff in the gym that control the controllables, right? And that's how I lecture with the football team here in the community, and just how I actually worked with kids while I was at Miami. I was teaching kids, this is how we got to eat at the dining hall, because the coaches really weren't allowed to eat with us because it would have been like over their time. So it was like, hey, Jake, sit with the basketball kids, teach them how to eat. Hey, sit with this offensive lineman. He can't get his calories up. Teach him how to eat. So it was allowing me to kind of work with other people because I implemented it myself to get to the Division I level as a 5'6" kid that probably no one should be able to be on that field. Like on the roster, I was 5'10", 215, but I was really 5'6", 201.
That's amazing.
Living a lie.
That's amazing. That's so, right. And that's awesome. And so then take us through, so school, what's kind of full circle is then the first person you met was Dave Jolson, and then right out of school you moved to Greenville and worked for him for almost a year before COVID kind of played into that.
Yep. So going through school, my initiative was always to make a decision where I wanted to work within a year of graduating. Because through being in school and kind of seeing people scramble as soon as they graduated, like, all right, loans are kicking in, I got to find a place to work, they would kind of rush into places. Versus for me, I was lucky to just shadow people from all across the moon and kind of understand, all right, this is how this practice does their thing, this is how this practice does their thing, learn how different docs treat, and that kind of formulated the way I treated through learning MPI, DNS, all the different mixed modals of treatment. And then Dave was that mirror replica of myself, or I can say I was the mirror replica of him, and that allowed me to enter his facility and his clinic down in Greenville, knowing nobody, but understanding that I treat the way the owner of this clinic does, and that allowed us to kind of jive. We talked about patients behind the scenes, and allowed us to kind of piggyback ideas back and forth while being on the same page down there.
I love it. And then, I think a lot of people, I'm sure, ask you this question of, well, I'm thinking about starting my own practice. I want to go work for someone for a little bit and then come back. What was your experience? What were some of the lessons that you took away from working with Dave and in Greenville that you've kind of implemented back to where you're at now?
Yeah, well, I think many people in my age group of chiropractic school would say Dave really set the gold standard of how a cash practice is set. And that's how my practice is here. We don't directly bill insurance, so that's kind of a whole different mold of practice setting and business-wide of things, and how you market yourself. So being able to learn from him while being in there and in working within the clinic allowed me to understand, okay, what are our type of patients? Where do you get those types of patients in the town, in the community? And that allowed me to come here and understand from working in that system for a year, okay, this is where you got to start right away and get going. You don't really have that time to learn because you got rent due, you got things that you got to meet, you got bills to pay, and it's get going, right? And as I was talking to Brett earlier today, I even shifted where I get patients, even through practicing here for the first couple of months of, I've kind of abandoned one side of getting patients and kind of targeted more the coaches / trainers in our community because they're in a cash-based setting themselves. They're working with people that pay them cash. So if you get them better with people that are usually already paying cash, they're okay paying that way, as long as you get them back to doing what they love. So having Dave as a role model has been incredible because, I mean, he teaches not only me, but he talks to a handful of my buddies that are in the system as well. And I can say it is a gold standard of how a cash practice should be ran. And I couldn't do this without him.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then one of your other big influences has been MDT and McKinsey through the years. And so when did you first get exposed to MDT? I'm sure Jolson had to play in that as well. But
yeah, so it was funny. It was Tom Lotus, Dr. Lotus. He came to National a handful of times, more than a handful of times when I was in school. And he was doing kind of these post class day talk where he kind of go over cases and kind of give his spiel about what MDT is, how he treats. And I remember the one day I just went and showed up to him. We kicked it off because he was Greek, I was Greek, and we kind of got connected there.
I'm sure you said a couple curse words at each other or something.
He knows the M word I'm talking about. And then when it comes to one of the guys that were just about to graduate, he was like, you got to get to know this guy. And I'm like, how do I get to know him? And I thought, all right, well, how about I just shadow him? So first day I went down to his clinic downtown in River North, and we just hit it off. I think I remember, and he remembers to this day, him taking a picture with an Aleck Plumbing cutoff shirt on, flexing, and I'm flexing in my MPI shirt, and we just had a ball seeing 16 to 18 patients that day. And I was obsessed with the whole mechanical exam, assess, find a motion that reduces pain or gets range of motion better, adjust the restricted area, and get on to the next patient. And that's what allowed me to get obsessed with shadowing him and learning more through seeing it firsthand, but also diving into the seminars and kind of blending that MPI / MDT approach, which is just the magic that you guys talk about all the time.
Right. So. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've told me some amazing stories of Tom Lotus in the clinic, and we were lucky enough to have him on our podcast and shadow him this week. And he is just a special talent in the treatment room. There's
flip the switch, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you actually had a great. We went to Vegas. We were in Vegas, right? And you had just happened to have a pair of Tom's shoes, and so one of Tom's old pair of shoes, and he wore it in Vegas the entire trip. It was so great. I mean, it was just.
It's those boater shoes, because this is the story of it. Is Tom always had these amazing, just designer-ish shoes that he would wear in clinic. And he had this 3-drawer in his room. And on the bottom, I just saw him in there. And I was like, hey, are we the same size? And he's like, I don't know, try them on. So I just wore them all day in clinic. And he was very, all right, you kind of do this to the patient, or, treat them or assess them and kind of go throughout that. And then I showed up at home and I'm like, oh my God, I still got Tom's shoes on. And so I just sent him a picture, and he's like, just keep wearing them, or like, whatever. Like, and then it just years go by, and then I remember we were packing for Vegas. I didn't have any like sandals to wear. I'm like, Tom slip-on shoes.
That's perfect.
So they were amazing.
That is amazing. I think another interesting thing about you too, Jake, is this is your home. So Frankfurt is home for you. You said you moved here when you were 1, right?
Yep.
Your parents did.
Yep.
Your dad owns a really successful plumbing company, and it's kind of in your family. And so, how's that been reintegrating back into Frankfurt, and how has that helped you to build what you have now today?
Yeah. So it's ever since I went through the system of playing grade school football here, played baseball with the grade sports all throughout school and growing up. When I was in high school, obviously I played at Lincoln Way East. I was lucky to play college football. But even once I went to Miami of Ohio, Coach Z allowed me to program all the strength and conditioning workouts for East while I was in college. And that just never really stopped until I made it back here. Even when I was in Greenville, even when I was in chiropractic school, I still kind of played that part with the high school. And now being back home, it's like I was away, even through my course of education and being in Greenville, but everyone knew I was still around, and now like I'm around. So coming back home to the people that I grew up with, and now I'm treating parents of kids that I grew up with, and kind of connecting from the whole family level of all aspects of Frankfurt. It's the best in the world, because when you can benefit the community and you can provide service to the community, that's what it's all about, because this is a community that made me who I am.
Yeah. It's got a great feel to it. Like the people, we've been here all morning, and I mean, you got like a great park system. The coffee's been great.
Yep.
The restaurant, went to a little wine shop.
That's right.
What about, so since you're on the Young Gun portion of our podcast,
Yep.
what advice would you give some of our younger docs or students? Like, how do you get to the point that you've gotten to? And we've had Grant Spear was another one we had on as one of our Young Guns. So kind of talk about, because everyone's trying to emulate your model kind of. So how you do it?
So I think from in school, you got to understand, am I going to work for someone, or am I going to own my own shop, right? That's got to be a decision made, and that's through, for me, talking to other people that own places, and through self-experience of other colleagues coming out of school. You got to know, what are those two, right? Because if I think I want to open up, nope, you're going to work for someone first, right? Because Brett, you know it more than anyone else, and then with anyone that's opened up a practice, you got to be full throttle in,
Right.
Yeah. And I think when I talk to people at school, they're always kind of teeter-tottering between the two, and I just love if you just go full throttle. Hey, I'm going to work for someone, and that's what I knew I was going to do from the get-go when I was in school. I was going to work for someone, and then I always had the mindset I was always going to come back home eventually. Obviously, with my aspect of going into Greenville, I had the full throttle of being there for a handful of years, but then my dad had back surgery, so that's what got me to come home and make sure his rehab was taken care of. But from step one is, what's your decision in school? Hey, am I going to create my practice, or am I going to work for someone? Because that allows you to migrate your time in a more beneficial fashion. For me, I knew I had to be the best clinician possible graduating school. That allowed us to take seminars out the Yahoo to be really good clinically and not really spend a lot of time on the business aspect. Well, if you're going to open up your own shop, you better understand the X's and O's of business, because you got to keep that rent going and pay the bills, right? So I think that's step one. And then step two is, once you're in town, you got to be part of wherever you're practicing. For me, I always say, if I'm going to hire someone to work with me, they got to live within the town. Because if you're within the town, and if you go out to dinner or you meet somebody and they can become a next patient, now that's your availability. Wherever you're at, you're marketing yourself.
Yeah.
Your branding, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things Brett and I talked about too. When I came to Troy, I think it is like an underrated thing. A lot of people want to disappear from their patients and they want to get away from it, but there's a huge benefit to, like you said. I mean, we saw 3 or 4 of your patients today just walking around.
Just walking around.
And so, I mean, I think that's difficult. We always talk about it. You never can get away from your failures or your successes, but it's also like, I think there's a good learning component to that of feeling the pressure of like seeing these people around.
For sure. And that's why, I mean, there's patients that you actively want to say hi to, and there's some patients like, all right, still visit 2 with them. Hopefully they're feeling better. Like, I don't know, right?
You walk up and you're like, I kind of want to see how you're doing, but I also don't really want to ask.
See you on Thursday, you know? So, I mean, but yeah, that's the true benefit of it. But on the backside, anywhere you go can be that next patient on your books, right? I mean, there's been multiple times I've had a conversation with someone, nothing about chiropractic, nothing about pain, nothing about anything body related. they're on the schedule on Friday because they met me as a person, liked the conversation, and said, oh, he's a likable dude. I'm going to make an appointment with him because I've been dealing with back pain I didn't even talk to him about.
Right.
So I think that's the thing that I think Brett has instilled in a lot of people that have known you is just be yourself at all aspects of your life.
Yeah,
because,
I agree.
You never want to be that person behind the curtain one way and then not in the other way, because wherever you're at, there's always someone that you can meet and kind of say something about yourself or be a reflection of you or your business.
Right.
And that's the idea that I've gotten from you and also my dad living through him growing up. So
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. What do you think, Jake, like what do you think intangible things, personality-wise, stuff like that, that has helped you get to where you are? Like, is there any things that I always say, like, I was born with a good, like, outward. I just enjoy talking to people all the time. I know that you're kind of the same way, but is there anything intangible-wise that you think people need to work on, or what's the next steps there?
Two things. I would say control the controllables, right? Don't say the woe is me. It's whatever you can take care of yourself and kind of go guns blazing with that. But also the answer is always no until you ask, right? And a lot of times people are very stingent upon, oh, I don't know if I should talk to that person. I don't know if I should take that approach. Well, it's like, try it, right? When I moved to Greenville, I was talking to you guys, it was a great chance for me to meet people without knowing anybody in the area. Like, I knew 3 people in that community. It was Dave Jolson, Fran Jolson, and their son Miles. Like, that was it, right? Yeah. And it gave me the opportunity to say, okay, how can I grow some patients coming in for myself in an area that I've never met? And you have to do that by controlling the controllables, doing what you can. For me, it was my social media aspect. Hey, if someone were just to randomly meet me in public and then search my name on Instagram, would they know what I'm about? And that's what I could definitely control. And 2 is just going out and reaching out to people, going to gyms and meeting people that never knew about me. They may not even know about Upstate Spine and Sport at the time because they were still new to the community, but you take that chance. And it may work out, it may not, but you gotta go for it.
Right. Our generation struggles with that, and Breton, has talked about a lot of like the confrontation of just like going out of your way and picking up a phone and doing stuff like that. So I think that that's something for sure that you're not afraid to do. Let's go on to the social media since you talked about it.
Yeah.
So you're basically known with our group of people for social media. That's one of the things. Do you actually enjoy doing social media?
Yes.
Do you like where that's amazing because like I hate it. Yes. I don't know. I don't get much enjoyment out of it, but it's a necessary evil. So what are some things? Maybe I know you enjoy it, but what are some things that make you consistent and successful with your social media?
Well, one, it's having the ability to say, put yourself out there, right? Because a lot of times you hear it where someone may go on a social media kick. They're like, all right, I'm getting out of my comfort zone. I'm doing this. Well, if you just kind of live that up and just do it, it becomes a lot easier as you keep going, right? And a lot of times in our business, people are coming to get treated by Brett Winchester, to get treated by Taylor Premer, to get treated by Jake Aleck. Well, if you're not very out about yourself on your social, where almost everyone double confirms, am I going to go to this person by looking up their website or their social media? So Brett has like 2 pictures that Rich Olin put up of him on his Instagram. So they use his Facebook or, WinchesterSpineSport.com to confirm. But for a lot of people in our era, they'll say, all right, I'm going to look up that clinic on Facebook or Instagram. Let me just confirm my decision to go there. And if you're just very out about yourself and just conversational and likable and, hey, I can relate to this person versus just talking medical language of this is spondylolisthesis, this is a disc herniation with the biscuit, people can't connect to that. It's be yourselves, show yourself in the community, and kind of just be all rounded by it. And if it ain't perfect, still post it. You know what I mean? And then we've talked about that, saying that it doesn't have to be perfect all the time. And that's the big thing that I think stalls people, is that they wait until that perfect thing, but now they're weeks behind and they didn't post anything because they didn't find perfect yet. No one has ever found perfect, you know? And I think some patients enjoy not seeing perfect because it's like, oh, I can connect to them. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So for me, it's like sometimes posting a not great meal, and when I post a lot of great meals that I do eat, it's like, all right, he's not a robot. Yeah. And if you follow Liz's account, I'm sure you can see way more meals of me not eating perfect. But it's just kind of being out there. So. Yeah.
What are the social media mediums you think that are most beneficial?
So, and again, it all comes back to the community in your town. If you look at Facebook, this town is a little bit in that 30-year-old to like 60-year-old time. I do a lot on Facebook because that's the age group that are on Facebook, 30 to 60-year-olds. If you do south of 30-year-olds, that's all Instagram. Okay, so depending on your niche of population that you want to attract or who you're looking for, I post different things on Facebook that I do on Instagram because they're two different metros of medium, right? So that's one, is just understanding where it's your community, who you're trying to focus towards. Facebook's kind of a pain in the butt because you don't really notice much benefit from it as you continue to do it, but more people will share it, more people will say, oh, I saw this video that you did, or I saw this post, and then you'll get some patient rollover. Instagram is just so easy. It's like it's your own like autobiography, but through video, you know? So do your stories, do your posts. I would always recommend at least throwing up 2 to 3 posts a week, but then story as often as possible, because not only are you giving benefit to your patients that are already following you, but also giving future patients of, oh, this is what this clinic's about. So you're providing 2 different values. It's not all about getting new patients, it's giving benefit to the patients that are already following you too.
And how much is premeditated? I mean, are you like, you know, going through your calendar and saying like on this day I'm going to push this out? Is it?
Yeah, so to get going, I would always recommend like on Mondays, a lot of people follow Aleck PTP, and it's Move Better Mondays. So on Mondays, it's always about putting a motion on there, or a way that you can exercise into moving better. So that's always those posts. I may go on a spiel in here and just knock out 4 videos, plan it for 4 weeks, now I'm done for the month. Wednesdays are usually kind of if I'm doing some informative aspect of teaching someone about nutrition or about different ways to exercise or lifestyle things, that's usually my days on that. So whenever an idea pops up and I got time, I'll film it and kind of keep it in the algorithm. But a lot of times it allows you to kind of stay on track versus just shooting off the hip and you go 2 weeks with 10 posts and then a month and a half with nothing.
How do you, like on Instagram, I always joke with him, I'm like, man, I get on there and it's just like, you know, people exercising like crazy on there. So how do you maybe separate yourself from everyone else on Instagram?
The biggest thing is staying consistent with whatever you believe about, right? You and I talk all about the 6 type of patterns of movement: push, pull, hinge, carry, and core and squat, right? Well, if you're doing every one of my workouts always kind of echoes that same thing of, hey, this is the push and the pull workout, or hey, this is a lunge and a squat workout, or this is that type of medium, I'm always referring to those principles. Now I'll have people that come to me like, oh, I didn't know that's considered a squat motion. Oh, hey, I have bad knees. How can I do this? And it's like, oh, well, just do more lunges instead of, you know, you can kind of echo that until eventually they'll be like, I just want to get treated by you.
Right.
You know? So if you always have those bottom line principles that you're always kind of echoing, that's how you go off of. It's not kind of just shooting off the hip of, oh, I'm really into intermittent fasting for this week. I'm going to talk about intermittent fasting. It's like, what are you about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Winchester Spine Sports, gluten-free or dairy-free. You guys can talk about that all day. Probably the people that we already ate from today can tell you guys talk about it. But everyone knows that about you guys, so now that's an easy thing for you guys to make posts about because you're about it, right? And that's the biggest thing here is I make posts about moving better, training smart, and then eating well. So those are my 3 aspects of the clinic. And if you can look at a post, it's probably going to be about one of those 3 things.
Yeah, my wife, she's my business coach, marketing coach, and that's what she says. Just pick your silos. Like you have 3 pillars that you just pick one of those things. And so she always says when you're making a calendar like that, if you just pick, all right, Monday is like you have movement, so there you go, there's one of your pillars.
Right.
Wednesday's a different pillar, Friday would be another one. Right. So as long as you're always gonna have content if you stick to those types of things. Yep. So, and I think like another thing you said, sorry to cut you off, is you stay true to who you are. You know, like if you're trying to portray yourself as something you're not on social media, everybody will see right through that.
Yeah,
I mean, nobody in their right mind would go to Aleck Pain Performance and say, I don't know if he actually works out.
Yeah.
I wonder if he smokes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like just encompassing that I think is a really important aspect.
Well, and just like you said there, when you have those days that you're planning and then say something out of the blue like a 5K happens, now that's just an extra post because it just happened randomly that week. So you always have that core content that you're just gradually pumping out, and then when something random happens, like we're going to take a picture of us 3, that's going to be a random post.
Right.
So now some weeks you may get that extra one, but again, now that's just more eyes on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the thing that most people fail on is the consistency. Like you have stayed extremely consistent, and that's why you're growing such a good following on social media, which is difficult. I mean, even us with Gestalt, I mean, that's what we're trying to do is like be more consistent on social media because that's what it takes to grow an audience and grow a community.
I will say this morning, after 30 minutes of your Great Cook video being put on, I think it was 30 minutes after on, over 100 people was viewed it or was listened to it. So
Yeah,
that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, we're getting there,
It's
baby.
pretty darn
We're
good.
getting there. So this one will be even bigger. So.
Yeah. I like to say better than before.
Yeah, exactly. Better than before. So, well, anyway, Jake, I just, me personally, thank you for being a great friend and for being a great role model, I think, for young clinicians that, like, this is a beautiful facility. Like, you did a great job, and sometimes it's scary to, like, really jump into the deep end.
Yeah.
And but I think you would probably reflect that if you go all in. You know, Tony Robbins always says, you know,
Burn
if you
the
want to,
boats.
if you want to take
Burn
the
the
island,
boats.
you burn the fucking boats. And
That's
so I think that you've definitely done that, and so it's showing.
And the quick thing that people always ask is like, hey, how, you know, I'm gonna try one. I'm gonna try whatever it is. This entire, and I think many mentors of mine or people that have opened up their practice, you would say the same. Like I really put imagery to this. I've drank or I've take sips of sweat of all of like mentors like Brett,
Yeah.
Rich, Tom, and like literally just took everything in that they have given to us through courses, through shadowing them, and then just package it into this is what's been working for years. Now just use it, right? The whole idea of reinventing the wheel is just so just not necessary to think about, right? And just take the principles of all of these different continuing education courses that you guys provide, and then shadow people, like shadow. That's the biggest thing I tell everyone, whether you're in the PT field, chiro field, shadow people that are doing it really well in practice, and then don't reinvent the wheel with it. Say someone has a really poor stabilization pattern. Brett probably uses 3 months to attack that, and you should probably do it. You know, it doesn't think that someone that teaches these courses does crazy things in the X's and O's. I mean, you guys shadowed Tom. He probably did a couple press ups when you guys shadowed him. You know, like, he's not doing all these different type of higher pillar motions in MDT. It's just stay true to the principles and use what works.
Well, as an educator too, I think the most ultimate compliment is when you see your students go on and start a place like this and just do a great job. And I mean, that's what makes someone like myself most proud. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you're the man. No,
Awesome.
In all things, and again, can't gestalt that what you guys have been doing with providing courses for people to go to and talk with you guys in between breaks and things like. Even with the podcast series, you guys providing just infinite knowledge to people that don't even know you sometimes too, and they're going to be taking courses with you just to meet you guys because. I mean, you guys just provide great information and just great people.
Oh, thanks.
I love it. Well, I think if I could just sum it up, keep learning, but be yourself. You know, no matter what Jake Aleck does, he's going to be Jake Aleck.
Yeah.
So that's
He's a grinder. I mean, when you were saying what makes you. I mean, when we talk about you behind your back, we're like that dude grinds. And I mean, I think that's the ultimate compliment. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So be yourself and be consistent, and the world's your oyster, right?
Love it.
Thanks, brother. Good
Thank
to see you.
Brett.
All right, guys. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. All right.
See you next time.